Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the Board of Commissioners for Nash County's September the 6th meeting to order at this time. I think Labor Day must have done us some good. Everybody seems to be in great spirits this morning, staff as well as commissioners, so I'm sure we're going to have a good meeting. Nancy, have you been to our meeting yet, or is this your first meeting? First one, okay. I do want to introduce a new reporter for the Graphic, Nancy West Brake, who joined them 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, been to a couple of events, but our first meeting. Welcome.
Thank you.
It is customary for the Board of Commissioners to begin each meeting with a prayer by a commissioner, and during that time, you're welcome to stand and join the board in that prayer. You're welcome to use it for your own prayer if you like, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whatever you have on your heart today. And then we do a pledge of allegiance to the flag. That will be by Commissioner Wayne Outlaw, and on rotation, it is Mr. Fred Bellfield's time to do the invocation. And Mr. Bellfield, I call on you at this time, sir.
Okay. It's prayer time. Jesus said, "Love thyself and love everyone as I have loved you." Yeah, and we also say, have patience, because God is not through with us yet. Father, we just thank you for your guidance. We thank you that we are able to come out this morning for our regular monthly commissioners meeting as we move forward in finding solutions to whatever situations we face. There are challenges. There are challenges in this county. There's challenges in this state, the country, and the world. And we know if we call upon you, that you hear our cry, and you will answer by and by. We know, Father, that we as leaders here in Nash County work toward doing what is right along with faith. So, Father, there's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, and I know it's the Spirit of the Lord. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're now on item number 4, which is approval of the minutes for the previous month. We had 2 meetings, a meeting on August the 15th and a recess meeting for August the 21st. You have those minutes in your packet. I'd entertain a motion for approval. Any additions or any changes at this time?
So moved.
Have a motion
Approval
for
of the
approval for both sets.
Second.
By Commissioner Wilkins, second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Minutes stand approved. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in item number 5, which is the time that the Board of Commissioners will hear from any citizens for anything they may have on their mind today that is not otherwise covered on the agenda. We do have a sign-up period out front that goes up until the time the meeting starts. No one signed up this morning, but we're pretty lenient with our program over here and like to hear from our citizens. So if someone's here wanted to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come forward at this time, state your name and address for the record. We'd be glad to hear from you. I actually think I know about everybody in the room, so seeing no movement, we'll move on to item number 6. Item number 6 is a public hearing on conditional rezoning request CZ 230701 Williams Grove Phase 7. Call on our planning director, Adam Tyson, at this time. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. This should be a somewhat familiar item. It was on the board's agenda for your last regular monthly meeting on August 15th. You'll recall at that time that the developer had submitted an alternate sketch plan design. That design had been revised to accommodate the recommendations of both the TRC and the planning board, but on the date of that meeting, it had not yet had a chance to be reviewed by the planning board. And so this board voted to table this request in order to allow it to go through the review of the planning board, which it has now done. The subject property is highlighted in red on the screen, on the aerial photo on the left and the zoning map on the right. It's an approximately 43-acre tract of land owned by the C.T. Williams Corporation. It's located at the north end of Juniper Road off Shallow Creek Trail in the Green Pond community outside Bailey. Property is a portion of a larger tract of land rezoned in April 2021 to RA20 CU, and you can see that in yellow on the zoning map. It was rezoned specifically for the development of the Williams Grove subdivision. 5 phases of that residential subdivision, consisting of 140 residential lots, have been developed and recorded so far. This is the previously approved and currently standing sketch plan for the western end of the Williams Grove subdivision. As you can see, the area in the area subject to today's request has been highlighted in yellow, specifically this proposed extension of Juniper Road here. The construction of that northern extension at that time was the only way that the roads would reach the area behind this riparian stream and wetland area that crosses the subject property. Of course, to construct that crossing, it would require permitting and review by both the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The property owner and developer has submitted today's request to propose an alternate sketch plan design that would remove this previously approved road connection across the wetland and riparian stream buffer at the northern end of Juniper Road. This is the revised design. You'll note immediately that there are fewer lots than were previously proposed, and I believe that owes itself to a more specific look that's been taken at the soil quality and the ability to install septic systems in the area on the north side of the riparian buffer and wetland. Per the prior recommendations of the TRC and the planning board, this design was revised so that the residential lots up here on the north side of the stream would be reconfigured. Previously, the proposed new road ran immediately adjacent to the properties to the north. They've been reconfigured, so it is now the back lot lines of these lots that are adjacent to those properties, and the road is on the south side. There's an additional stub road that has been added here. This area would be accessed from Needham Road across the Whitley Crossing subdivision phase 3, specifically Ava Drive, which has been dedicated and constructed up to the developer's property line here. And the developer has proposed a new stub road here, and that stub road breaks up the block length. Previously, there was a subdivision waiver request attached to this rezoning because the distance from this stub road here to the end of the cul-de-sac to the east exceeded the 1,200-foot limit. The developer has remedied that by adding the new stub road to the adjacent property to the north, and now both segments are compliant with the block length requirements, and there's no more need for a subdivision waiver. Approval of this request would amend the subdivision sketch plan that's attached to this rezoning only. It would not result in any changes to the residential density that's allowed at this site, the minimum lot requirements, or the land uses that are permitted for development. So it is purely a change to the design of the layout of the lots and the road. Likewise, there were development conditions that were placed on the property by the previous rezoning. Those conditions will be carried forward and would remain in effect, but there is the opportunity to attach some additional new conditions if needed, with the consent of the applicant. Whenever we review rezoning, we are required by state law to consult our comprehensive land use plan. This map is an excerpt from the future land use map included in that plan. You can see that the area is divided between the residential agricultural area and the natural resource protection area in blue through here that mirrors the stream and the wetland area. This sketch plan is consistent with the recommendation of the plan that would generally discourage development impacting the designated water protection natural resource area, again shown in blue, which includes that jurisdictional wetland and the riparian stream buffer, because it removes the impacts that the proposed road would have in that environmentally sensitive area. This request would not be considered spot zoning because, again, we're changing the subdivision sketch plan only and not the permitted uses, the density, or the lot requirements. The Technical Review Committee reviewed the revised sketch plan back on August the 3rd and recommended approval, subject to one additional revision, and that is here on the northern end of Juniper Road. The TRC recommends and would require that Juniper Road terminate in a permanent cul-de-sac just shy of the wetland riparian buffer. And so the TRC recommends approval subject to that one additional revision of a permanent cul-de-sac right here. Planning Board considered this request on August 21. Mr. Cecil Williams, the applicant and developer, addressed the board at that meeting in support of the request. And the only member of the public to address the board at that meeting was Ms. Peggy Evans Perry. She's the owner of one of the rectangular properties to the north that would be adjacent to the backyards of these additional lots here. Ms. Perry addressed the board to request the installation of a screening buffer between the two properties that would consist of an earthen berm, planted vegetation, and a wooden fence. The planning board ultimately voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed alternate sketch plan design, but without requiring the requested screening measures that were discussed by Ms. Perry. Your packet includes suggested motions to either approve or deny the rezoning request. The motion to approve includes all of the development conditions that are already in place on the property. With the exception of development condition number 1, it has been revised to note and require the permanent cul-de-sac at the north end of Juniper Road, just south of the wetland and stream buffer. But otherwise, these conditions remain the same as the conditions that are already in place. Mr. Williams, the applicant, is here with us for the public hearing to follow this report. And with that, I will pause and take any questions that the board has.
Any board member have questions of Mr. Tyson at this time?
Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
Got a question. Who's the developer for the property on Ava Drive? And what is the status of the property that adjoins where the proposed stub road is on the northeast side of the property? Is that Woods or is that somebody else's?
Gotcha.
Is that currently being developed?
So the property here where Ava Drive is, the developer is Ace Needham LLC, as represented by Mr. Alex Ivy. That property, the subdivision that includes Ava Drive has been recorded, I think, last week or the week before. The roads are mostly finished. However, the county is holding a letter of credit for the remaining improvements. The developer provided us that as a performance guarantee so that we can ensure that the final stages of the road construction are completed. The property over here is not currently under development where the other stub road would connect. And if I can go back to the aerial photo at the beginning, maybe we can get a sense of, I believe there are some woods immediately along the property line, and then there's a cleared agricultural field to the north there, and that is not currently under development.
I think that track you got your cursor on is Peggy Perry.
Okay. Well, I think the stub road actually comes to this little thin lot that's kind of under this call out. And I think the stub road might be right there. And so it's a little hard to see under this label whether that's wooded or farmed. But I do feel confident in saying there are no immediate plans for its development as a residential subdivision.
Right, okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Belfield?
I'm thinking about environmental protection. As you know, you notice you see on TV houses falling when you get a lot of rain, it wash them right into the stream. Do we have adequate footage from the stream? I'm looking at the map, it looks like they're mighty close, sitting right on it, in the west part.
You're talking about in this area right here?
The other area, go to the right there.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind is that the stream bank is the center of this shape. And this shape shows a 50-foot buffer on either side of the stream bank. And so there's no development proposed within 50 feet of the stream bank, and that is the distance that's required by the state. In terms of environmental impact, this alternate design that's for consideration today removes the major impact to the stream because the road would no longer cross it. And so these lots here would be accessed. You would not have to cross the stream to access these lots anymore. You would take an existing road back out to Needham Road. But this whole area is not the stream. That's a buffer on both sides of the stream, so there is some built-in separation and protection distance in there.
Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
Got one more question. It looks like as proposed, this, laying this, cutting off the road, the stream crossing, and putting these lots on the north side of that stream, that basically this part of his development would become a part of the Ava Drive neighborhood for all intents and purposes.
I would say that's correct. There would be no way to immediately access this, which is Phase 7 of Williams Grove, without crossing through the Whitley Crossing subdivision at some point.
Okay, so it's named, the north part is Whitley Crossing Phase 3? Or
So
what is
what we're
the
looking
Ava
at
Drive?
today in yellow is Williams Grove Phase 7.
Okay,
But the only way to access it, at least initially, will be through Ava Drive, and that is in the neighborhood known as Whitley Crossing Phase 3. And Phases 2 and Phase 1 of Whitley Crossing are over here to the left between Ava Drive and Whitley Road.
Other comments or questions? When you say initially, there will never be any connect between these two phases, you're talking about the Stubb Street. may eventually
Correct.
get-
If the Stubb Street were ever developed, that's right.
Okay. Was there any particular reason why the planning board didn't address the screening request, or I guess it's not in the ordinance? What was the thought process of the planning board at that point?
So the screening request is not a requirement in the ordinance. The ordinance doesn't require residentially developed property to be screened from residentially zoned property, which would be the case here. And ultimately, I guess I'm speaking for the planning board, but I'm basing it on the discussion they had at the meeting. Because that had not been required in any other area for this particular subdivision, they chose to decline to require it for this phase.
Didn't we do it on something that adjoined some fence land one time?
We did. That would be across the other side of Whitley Road, and that was a cool water subdivision, and that was discussed at the meeting because these proposed screening measures were directly based on what was required for that subdivision.
Okay, thank you. No other questions? Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing at this time.
so moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing at this time. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this rezoning request, which is really a sketch plan change, please come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Heather Louise Finch, 4492 Stony Hill Church Road. Could you pull that, good morning, Adam. Could you pull that map back up, the one that shows the farmland? So the one that came in the question about where that buffer road would be, actually, 3 planning meetings ago, they said that wouldn't qualify for a buffer because the access point that connects to Needham Road wouldn't be wide enough for emergency services, just for clarity on that, because that's Donnie Glover's property, and then the 2 different divisions, there's 2 different properties at the front of the road, so that wouldn't be wide enough for the fire trucks and stuff. They mentioned that 3 planning meetings ago. Anyhow, I'm here to on behalf of Ms. Peggy Perry Bullock, and yes, regarding the buffer part, if this is to be passed. And it's similar to the buffer that was placed on our family farm off of Stony Hill Church Road and Whitley Road behind the Coolwater phase, but she requested a buffer that is 3 foot high and 5 foot wide, an earthen berm, and any additional things that could be for the division of the property. I'm also going to speak from a personal experience that I really don't want to share publicly, but I will on her behalf. I think this is important. We've recently had a lot of vandalism and break-ins and other incidents that have happened on our farm. Now, those are public record because they've been filed with the Nash County Sheriff's Office. Not to say who it was or anything of that nature, but just consider these things are important to protect ourselves and protect our citizens, and also to protect other people too. Because if you have a child wandering out in the woods and somebody's dove hunting, or somebody's on their four-wheeler, or I'm out there doing stuff, we've got to consider all parties involved so we can all grow and work together and be safe. So it would be great if y'all could consider, if this is passed, to consider having a buffer for her and a wooden screen fence, if possible, for protection. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Others that wish to speak on this item? Good morning, Mr.
Good
Williams.
morning, everyone.
Morning.
Chairman, I'm Cecil Williams, 6765 Jordan Road, Elm City, North Carolina. I'm just here to answer questions, and obviously I'm hoping y'all approve it. I think we finally got a plan that it wasn't my choice, but my first choice, but I'm satisfied with it. So I'm here to answer questions.
Okay. Anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Mr. Williams, the developer? Thank you, sir.
No questions about the buffer?
I didn't hear any, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing no movement, entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to close the public hearing, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? The public hearing is now closed. Any other questions for Mr. Tyson? Seeing none, pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Leggett.
All right. I move that the Nash County Board of Commissioners adopt the statement plan of consistency and reasonableness below. It's listed in the agenda, and deny the conditional rezoning request because of potential impact on the adjoining subdivision and need for the developer to do proper research prior to submitting subdivision plans to the county.
Second.
You heard the motion, you've heard the second. Mr. Tyson, motion in proper form?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries and the rezoning fails. Next item on the agenda is another public hearing on a UDO text amendment, request A230801, repeal cluster subdivision development option. Mr. Tyson?
Yes, sir. The cluster subdivision development option is an option in our Unified Development Ordinance that allows single-family residential lots to have slightly smaller lot sizes without requiring that property to be rezoned to a more dense zoning district. But the trade-off requirement is that all the land that would have otherwise been included in those individual lots has to be designated as shared common area on the same property, and that common area is owned and maintained by the Property Owners Association for recreational use. It essentially serves as a shared backyard to make up for the area that's been taken out of the individual lots. The intent of the option is to allow for a more efficient subdivision design by placing the homes slightly closer together without increasing the overall residential density of a given development. However, the cluster subdivision development option, as it currently stands, has faced some criticism, particularly during our process of considering and adopting the comprehensive land use plan. The first criticism involves its allowance for residential lots with a total minimum lot area as small as 20,000 square feet each, without the requirement for the developer to formally rezone the subject property. So if a developer proposes the use of the cluster subdivision development option, if they meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance, then the planning board is obligated to approve it. And there is no public hearing process like there would be for rezoning that would reduce the minimum lot size. And so it is an administrative review process, and the county has an obligation to approve it as long as it meets, the proposal meets the minimum requirements. Whereas if it were a rezoning, it is a legislative decision which gives great leeway to the board to make an approval or a denial. Number two, there is a requirement of the developers to dedicate only 15% of the overall development area as the required shared common area open space. And there were discussions during the adoption of the land use plan that that percentage should be increased. Number three, the current cluster subdivision development requirements lack any specific standards for the common area or open space itself in order to ensure that it's actually usable and of recreational value to the subdivision residents. As a result of these concerns, there's a specific action item, which is action item 1.2.5 of the Nash County 2022 Comprehensive Land Use Plan that this board adopted back in November. It recommends that the county, quote, consider eliminating the cluster development standards. Given that the review right now of the cluster subdivision development option is an administrative approval process, which I've explained means the county's obligated to approve any proposal that meets the minimum requirements, then the planning staff is urging the county to consider an immediate repeal of the current regulations. The intent of this request is to amend UDO Article 9, Section 941B, to entirely repeal the cluster subdivision development option. If that's done by the board today, all newly subdivided residential lots would be required to satisfy the standard minimum lot size requirement of the zoning district they're located in, unless and until they hold a public hearing process and get the approval of this board to actually rezone the property in order to reduce the lot sizes. So there will no longer be a method for reducing lot sizes that does not require Board of Commissioners approval through a public hearing process. The next section of the report on page 15 at the bottom just shows the current subdivision cluster development option as it stands in the ordinance, and you can see it's struck through because this is a complete repeal of that section to remove it. The request for the text amendment is obviously consistent with the comprehensive land use plan because of, as I already mentioned, there's a specific action item that recommends that the county consider eliminating the cluster development standards. The Technical Review Committee considered this request back on August the 3rd and recommended approval. The planning board first considered this request back in January of this year when it was brought to them by the staff. They deferred at that time and tabled the matter because they wanted to discuss the option for a conservation subdivision in place of the cluster subdivision development. We are still working with the planning board to study that option. However, the staff feels that it's important to move forward with the repeal at this time so that we don't have our hands tied as a county as far as having to approve requests that come in that perhaps we're not entirely comfortable with because we're not satisfied with the results that the cluster development standards are currently yielding. There were no members of the public at the board's meeting on August 21st to re-review this request, and the planning board ultimately voted unanimously to recommend approval of the repeal of the cluster development standards. This is a one-motion process, and you have a motion to either approve or deny the text amendment, and either motion will use the same statement of plan consistency, which is printed at the bottom of page 17. This will require a public hearing, and I'll pause to take any questions on the staff report.
Any questions, Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
From a
Yes.
Commissioner, Mr. Belfield, please go ahead.
Ms. Tyson, making the lot smaller, explain to me how that's going to be more efficient.
It allows it can be more efficient because it can reduce the amount of road that you have to build to reach each lot, putting the lots, making them slightly smaller and closer together. For instance, can shorten the length of new road that you have to build to meet each lot.
Well,
Other questions from the
well,
commission?
I don't see that as being more efficient, so, so be it.
Other questions? Mr. Tyson, would you make a little bit more explanation maybe to Mr. Belfield about what this does? I'm not sure.
Right.
He
So-
quite understands what we're doing.
So if the board approves this text amendment, it will remove the cluster subdivision development option. And we went over a list of criticisms, and it sounds like, at least for you personally, one of your criticisms would be that you don't find it to result in a more efficient subdivision layout. So approving this request actually takes this option off the table. So approval of this would be consistent with what you just observed about it not resulting in a more efficient design. Because if this request is approved, that option won't be in the ordinance. They could still pursue it through a rezoning where this board could look at it and consider the merits on a case-by-case basis, but it would no longer be an obligation of the county to approve that option.
You okay, Mr. Belfield?
Okay.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you, Mr. Tyson. I'll call for a public hearing, motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries, and ladies and gentlemen, we are in another public hearing. This public hearing is whether to do away with the option of having a cluster subdivision in Nash County, and if there's anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this, be glad to hear from you at this time. Seeing no movement, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We now have the public hearing closed. A pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Combs.
I move that the Nash County Board of Commissioners adopt a statement of plan consistency below and approve the UDO text amendment request A230801 to repeal the cluster subdivision option.
Have a motion to approve appealing it as recommended by the planning board. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion? Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? One question, Mr. Tyson, where do we currently stand as far as that option is available? Have we not done away with it in some cases in the past on lower lot sizes? My thought is
We have.
it's only available.
Previously, you could cluster down to a 10,000 or 6,000 square foot lot, and the board made a change to set a limit that you could, currently, you can cluster from 40,000 to 30,000, or for 30,000 to 20,000, but there were more dense options that the board previously took out of the ordinance.
But you can still, as it stands, go from 30 to 20, because I thought we had done away with that as well.
Correct, you still can, but this amendment will do away with it.
Okay. All right, I remember that wrong then. All right, no other questions, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, also, Mr. Tyson, is a resolution for addition to the state-maintained secondary road system, Ashboro West subdivision.
This request does not require a public hearing. The North Carolina Department of Transportation has forwarded a petition submitted by Four Seasons Contractors LLC, the developer, to request the addition of the interior roads of the Ashboro West subdivision to the state-maintained secondary road system. These subject roads are located off the south side of Hunter Hill Road. They're highlighted in red on the aerial photograph on the screen. They include Bayview Court, Bayview Drive, Brandy Mill Drive, Biddleton Drive, Sweet Bay Court, and Sweet Bay Road. Each of these roads is a 60-foot wide public right-of-way that was initially constructed and dedicated between 2013 and 2015. The DOT requires the adoption of a resolution by the local Board of Commissioners as a prerequisite for adding these new roads into the state-maintained secondary road system. It does require an action of the State Board of Transportation to do that. The draft resolution is attached on page 20 of your agenda packet, and this will be a single motion to adopt or deny the resolution as proposed.
Any questions on that item? Mr. Tyson, what is the long period of time between when you said this was recorded, which I think you said 14 maybe, and here we are 9 years later?
Right.
Tell me why that looks like it does.
Well, the first period of delay is because the roads don't qualify until there are a certain number of existing homes per mile, meeting a ratio set by the DOT. The second delay is it requires the action of the developer to file the petition with the NCDOT to kick off this adoption process. And it's kind of my informal understanding that in this particular subdivision, there were some other things other than the roads, such as some drainage culverts, things that the developer needed to handle before the homeowners association was ready to accept responsibility for the entire subdivision. And that created some delays in this particular case.
Nothing to do with the streets, but something the homeowners might be responsible for.
There were some issues that weren't necessarily to do with the quality of the road, but things pertinent to the road, like culverts, that the homeowners association wanted the developer to correct before they were willing to let the developer go, essentially, from this subdivision.
So is it the developer that requests DOT, or is it the homeowner association?
It can be either,
Or it could be both?
but in this case, the developer had not exited the homeowners association and turned it over to the residents yet. And so they're the ones that sent the petition.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, I've talked so much. Have I got a motion on this or not? Thank you. Entertain a motion on this item.
So moved.
Motion is to
Oh, I'm
approve.
sorry. Yeah, motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well. Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 9, which is approval of fireworks display permit. And I'll call on Brent Fisher at this time.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Unusual time of year for a fireworks display. What do you
Yes.
have this morning, sir?
All right. The Nash County Fire Marshal's Office has received a permit application to conduct a fireworks display for the Pumpkin Festival on October 7th, 2023 at Spring Hope Elementary School in Spring Hope, North Carolina. The operational permit requester is the contractor Kevin Wetzel of Wetzel Pyrotechnics of 125 Eagleton Circle, Moyock, North Carolina. The permit application and accompanying documents are in order, and a copy of the insurance bond with Nash County as an additional insured is attached. North Carolina General Statute 14-410 requires the Board of Commissioners give approval prior to the fire marshal issuing the permit. And the Nash County Fire Marshal's Office recommends approval of the operational permit for Kevin Wetzel doing business as Wetzel Pyrotechnics.
Any questions of Mr. Fisher at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion, we approve.
Have a motion to approve by Commissioner Combs. There a second?
Second.
Several seconds. Mr. Outlaw, maybe first. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And thank you for your long service, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Think you had a milestone yesterday, maybe, or the day before.
Yes, sir. September 1st.
September 1st. 30 years with Nash County, and board certainly appreciates it. Item number 10 is the monthly tax report, and I'll call on Doris Sumner at this time to make the presentation.
Thank you. Good
Morning.
morning. At this time, I'd like to present the monthly tax report. As you all know, this report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it will be noted in the minutes. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Any questions on the tax report? Seeing none, we'll accept it for the minutes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Tax refunds, item number 11.
Yes, sir. We have a couple of refunds that we need approval on so that we can disperse those funds. And if you have any questions on any of those, I'd be glad to answer that as well.
Any questions on those? Got briefed very thoroughly on those the other day in the post office by the person that asked for the refunds.
Okay, good.
Well, I just have a quick question, if I could. It looks like it's 4 refunds for the same parcel for the same reasons.
Yes,
I
sir.
just need to understand.
We do it by each year.
Oh, so it's different years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And he informed me he didn't understand it being only for 5 years, but I guess we're working under general statute.
Yes, sir.
So you can only look back 5 years,
Yes, sir.
and anything else, you're just not able to recapture.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval of the tax refunds.
So
Move
moved.
approval.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, second by Commissioner Belfield. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Tax refunds stand approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay.
Next item is Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2 construction agreement. And I do not have Ms. McGee. I will move on and, well, I can't really move on to the next item. Ms. Wood, can you do the project ordinance amendment prior to construction agreement, or you need to do it after? Why don't we come back to both of those? You hesitated too long. Are you prepared to go on to item number 14?
I am.
Okay, let's go to 14, which is travel and meal policy update. Madam Clerk, if you will prompt Ms. McGee.
I just texted you.
Okay, thank you. Item 14, travel and meal policy update, and this is for the employees, nothing to do with the board.
That's correct.
We've had a couple of these lately. I'm just making that clear.
Okay. The policy committee reviews existing policies and considers new policies to assist with day-to-day administration, as well as personnel policy issues. One of the policies brought to the committee for consideration was the travel and meal policy. After the policy committee submitted updates to the policy, it was provided to the management team to review and comment. The updated travel and meal policy is presented for consideration by the Board of Commissioners to adopt the revisions and to make effective September 15th, 2023. For reference, I'd like to review a couple of the significant changes to the travel and meal policy as presented. No use of the county P card for overnight travel meals. Effective with the proposed policy update, travel meals will be based on a reimbursable per diem rate, a set rate by meal, and available to be processed through weekly accounts payable or the monthly payroll process. Travel meals will no longer be charged directly to the county P card, requiring the employee to maintain itemized receipts when traveling for meals. In addition, and if an employee is traveling more than 10 days at a time, an advance of funds can be obtained with appropriate approval. By using per diem rates established in Section 4.2 of the proposed policy update, instead of the itemized receipts, we have the potential to provide for more consistency across the organization and to save both time and money. Instead of employees having to retain itemized receipts, submit to the finance office, and finance staff having to detail review numerous receipts, when an employee returns from a trip, which is a requirement for our P card documentation, the use of per diem establishes a flat rate for all county employees that can be easily documented, verified, and reimbursed based on the travel training agenda. The next item would be special approval. In the proposed policy, the finance director does not have the authority to grant special approval for travel meals over the per meal rate. All employees will be treated equally. In the current policy, that is one of the items in it. The next item is the per diem meal rate. Appendix K from the existing policy would no longer exist with the policy update. In the updated policy, the per diem meal rates are included within the policy, Section 4.2. The updated policy also includes an increase in the per diem rate from $48 per day to $59 per day. This amount was based on current U.S. Services Administration, GSA, with the primary destination set as Raleigh. The proposed meal breakdowns are as follows. Breakfast will be $12, lunch $15, and dinner $32. And the final significant change would be in the expense reporting section. Section 8 was added to the updated policy to provide procedures for expense reporting and defined approval levels for travel and meal expenditures for all employees. With the approval process in place, it provides more oversight at all levels. Are there any questions or comments?
What prompted us getting back into this policy, just some issues finance department was having?
It was across the board with having to review, well, one, just the overall travel and meal. We felt like it was missing some things specifically for some oversight. And then according to our meal rates, we thought they needed a change and update. And then as we were looking at what we could do to benefit and improve efficiency with the process, we added some items with the no overnight meal use of the P card.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner have any questions, Mr. Arrington?
How many members are on the policy committee?
I feel like there's a representative for almost every department on the policy committee, and if they're not part of the policy committee, this policy went to the management team, which would be every single department, and department head had the opportunity to review and comment before it was.
How many people are on the policy committee?
I don't know that we can give you the exact number. I can look those members up and give you that information in an email, but, I mean, it's a good 15, 18 individuals.
Any board members on the policy committee?
No.
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, why not?
You asked me personally, I'll answer personally.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
Okay,
know.
but I can't answer for the board.
I
but
can just say, policy committee was created, I would say about well, I don't even know how many years ago, but we actually, among management team, created a handful of committees. One was for policy, one was for morale, one was for training of our employees. What else do we have? We've got a couple other committees, but the policy committee has been in effect since we redid the policy manual back in 2018. And that's been staff, and staff brought those policies to the board. Mr. Attorney, can I put you on the spot? We have had some recent discussions about the policies that are in our Human Resource Policy Manual, and some of those do have the need to come before the board, but there's others that don't. I think there's things like dress code and some different things that the board may not want to deal with, and we can do that at administration level. So what we'd like to do is separate out those policies that don't have a need to come to the board. This one in particular had a need to come to the board due to the per diem rate changing. That would be a change in an expense to do with financials. So it did have a need to come before the board. But we do have many policies in our policy manual that need to be separated out so that the board doesn't have to deal with every issue with policy.
Okay. I guess somewhere along the line, of defining which policy, since the board is supposed to be policymaking, this board, that we might have representation on the committees that either, the overall, so that we at least have some input or review. That's my personal opinion on this, so that, we'll have an overall opinion on, from, like I said, from the different departments and also from the board as to what seems might be feasible, and so we can, move forward, I think, a little bit more smoothly. So, Mr. Chairman, I wish you would consider maybe appointing members of the board to policy committee that might review the policies that, like she said, would be coming before the board, and not necessarily the administrative ones.
I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Arrington. I'm not sure that I personally agree with you. I think what we're doing here this morning is it comes to you for your approval. I don't think a commissioner, we may just differ on this, but I don't know that a commissioner needs to be on a policy committee that gets into the weeds and the details of formulating policy for employees when we really only manage one employee here, but that's just my personal thought. Are the other commissioners have a feeling? Mr. Outlaw first.
Well, let me just finish saying just this, that I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to sit in on every policy review committee, but when I'm saying that we would be part of a policy review. Once they have came and developed it, we will review it before it comes to the board for approval. That the board will have a member or two that will review it, and then say, okay, well, we can go forward with that. Come to the board and say we go forward with that.
Good.
So it gives a little representation
Sure.
from the inside versus the outside.
Let's see how the rest of the commissioners feel, Mr. Outlaw.
Well, there are 7 of us sitting up here, and all 7 of us could potentially have different views on policy. We've got committees that make recommendations on policy. They bring that to us. We do have the opportunity as a board to debate, discuss policies, and make any changes that need to be made. Personally, I think it would tend to intimidate the committee if you have a commissioner sitting on that committee, and I think it would not allow them to come to the best possible decisions they can come to. Remember, you have the final say, so If you happen to be in the majority, in opposition, or in favor of any policy brought before this board, then you have the final say. So I would not support putting members of this board on policy-making committees or other committees that are established by the manager.
Mr. Belfield?
Well, I'll put it this way. Per diem, I've seen agencies where it's so much for breakfast, so much for lunch, and so much for dinner per day. I know you're raising it, and it probably needs to be with the cost of meals now. But it seemed like to me you ought to take a look at it that way. And you spend so much for breakfast, and so much for lunch, and so much for dinner within that total amount that you maintaining that total amount. If you go over what the amount that you go over is on you, the responsibility is on you. They take a look at, if they haven't, I would suggest maybe doing that.
And that's the direction, I believe, the policy committee agrees with you on, that we wanted to move forward with that.
Yeah. One other thing, I'm not sure that Commissioner Arrington was driving it. The committees, are they all ethnic groups are represented on that committee? If not, you certainly ought to take a look at it.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Give me just a minute. You finished, Mr. Belfield?
I'm through.
Okay. In this case, you know, we got this in our agenda. I did have one commissioner, Commissioner Wilkins, and then I'll give you the floor to have some concern with it. I just suggested that she meet with management and see if she could work her concerns out, and I think she had that meeting. She told me just a while ago, she did, which is one way you can always, if you got questions on it beforehand, take it up with staff, if you have a chance to look at it before you come in here. Would you go ahead with wherever you were? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you. Before I start with my concern on the expense report, I just want to say Commissioner Arrington, reading between the lines, I think he also, and correct me if I'm wrong, may have some concern that there aren't any regular hourly employees on that policy committee it's all, I believe, management, the management team or department heads. And if not, maybe I would just ask that you look at that so we know what hourly employees are facing and whatnot. The other thing, 8.0 expense reporting, 8.1, it says an employee must have a minimum of 10 consecutive days of travel to request in advance. I had some concern and heartburn about that. Not all our employees are six figures, not all our employees are $50,000 over, and those, particularly those making 30 or 40,000, can't go that long without requesting an advance. And I had asked that that be changed to 5 days, and I did meet with the county manager and the finance department director on yesterday, and they agreed to that, and I'm hoping this board will agree to change that to 5 consecutive days rather than 10. And that I also asked that the department heads please make their employees aware, if they have an employee that they know is having hardship, that they maybe try to make an exception and speak with the finance manager about getting that advance if needed. And also that they can submit their receipts to finance, accounts payable weekly if they can't wait for that monthly payroll reimbursement. And so when the time comes, I will be prepared to make a motion to change 10 consecutive days to 5 days with the nod of the finance director and the county manager, and hope this board will approve it.
Would you say again where you are in the policy?
8.0, expense reporting, in that first section, 8.1, submitting a travel meal advance request. It says 10 consecutive days of travel. I mean, how many employees do we know go on travel for 10 consecutive days? Normally, I would think it's 3 to 5.
Right, okay, I find it now, I know where you're at now, thank you. Any other comments?
No, that's it.
Other commissioners have comments or questions on this policy? Change?
I appreciate you for bringing this to us and support streamlining the meal policy and think that the rates are fair. I'd like to discuss Commissioner Wilkins' proposal for the 5 days versus 10 a little more. And I also appreciate the fact that the county does have employee committees where they organically develop policy and recommendations that bring to the board here for our review.
Mr. Lake, did you say you wanted to discuss the 5 to 10 some more, or,
I'd just like to get the staff's
okay,
feedback.
okay.
So-
Can you do that at this time?
Yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Wilkins for bringing her concerns to the county manager and myself. And she did explain her reasoning for the 5 days, for changing the advance from 10 days to 5 days, and we agreed. And I wanted to present what I originally submitted to the board, but we would like to make that change to 5 days. We feel like it's more reasonable to, if there are employees traveling more than 5 days, that they can get that advance, and it would help them out to supplement their meals and help them out in that regard. The other item that Commissioner Wilkins brought to my attention, although we did have it in the significant changes, it's not written in the policy, and I'd like to add it to the policy, Section 8.0 on the reporting, to just put in there that the reimbursement can be done through the weekly accounts payable as well as payroll reimbursement. It's not stated there in the policy, but I would like to put that in there as well, just so it is unknown item.
Okay, all right. Other concerns from commissioners? Mr. Aaron?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'm still on my reason why we should have a commissioner on policy that come up to this board for review. And one of the reasons, like Commissioner Wilkins said, okay, well, we hear from staff, we hear from, other people than just sometimes the department heads, and they give input. So it's always important to have what I call a diversified committee, so that you will hear all sides, and then you be able to come up with a policy that pretty much kind of fits what the administration wants, what the board wants, and what also serve the purpose of what you're trying to police. So, again, I think that would not like think that as a commissioner sitting on a committee that Mr. Outlaw said would be intimidating, because we sit on other committees, and I don't think we're intimidating. We are there to give input from our perspective. And, Mr. Chairman, again, I would like you to consider possibly placing an amendment to on as a policy committee that would come before this board from the administration. That's it. And as far as this policy is concerned, I would support if there's amendment that Commissioner Wilkins proposed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments? I would entertain a motion at this time to approve the policy with whatever changes the motion maker has in mind.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the travel and expense policy for employees with the correction of 5 consecutive days of travel for an advance as opposed to 10, and that it be added what the finance director said about the receiving, Donna,
Weekly.
Receiving the reimbursement through a
Reimbursement,
weekly
yeah.
accounts payable as well as the monthly payroll.
yes, that's my motion.
All right. I have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
By Commissioner Leggett, Commissioner Belfield at the same time. Is staff clear on what the motion is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No other questions or any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries with the changes. Since Commissioner Arrington delegated to the chair to consider putting a member on the policy committee from the Board of Commissioners, I'd like to dispose of that request while it's fresh on my mind. And the way I would prefer to dispose of it is ask the question of the board by a show of hands, who wants that person on there. Is that suitable with you, Mr. Arrington? I don't know how to handle it any other way, because I can't do it without approval of the board, or shouldn't be doing it without approval of the board. So those commissioners that wish to have a commissioner on the policy committee, please let it be known by a show of your right hand. Do you understand the question, Mr.
I
Belfield?
guess I should have mentioned this
Okay.
before we voted, but anyway, I'll bring it up anyway.
Well, we hadn't voted, we hadn't finished the vote, so go ahead with your question.
The question is, according to this, they don't have to turn receipts in and itemize that.
Well, actually, Mr. Belfield, the previous motion and the previous vote approved the policy as written with the two changes that were made. So we moved beyond that.
Yeah, I know, but I was
Okay.
just bringing it up.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
I realized that, but
Sure.
I just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay,
They don't have to turn in receipts. So it ran through my mind and how they keep up with each individual, making sure that they don't go over the per diem per day.
well, my understanding of it is that we're basing it on per diem now. You're gonna get reimbursed if you are traveling that amount per meal, and no matter what you spend. If you want to save your money and not eat, you can save your money and take that money.
Yeah, there you go.
Or anything
You
in
got-
between.
If each person got $59 a
Yes, sir.
day, and they don't spend but 25.
Yes, sir.
But yet they can be reimbursed for 59.
That's correct.
And I've seen that before.
Or that's what would happen here.
But you're not saving any money at all when you do that.
You're not saving any money with the exception of you're eliminating some
Just
staff
looking at
time for
that
having
they
to keep up
can't-
with all the
they-
tickets.
They can't be reimbursed over what it says per day. I understand that.
Correct.
But I've seen situations where people take the food with them, and then that they prepared at home for the time they're gone, and then get reimbursed for each day,
Right.
and they spent little or nothing.
Well, they will continue to be able to do that under this policy, but apparently staff has determined that the cost involved in keeping up with all those tickets and determining what they really owe them is more costly than what it would be to pay per diem and everybody be treated alike. And apparently the board agreed with that philosophy because we unanimously just approved the policy. But I understand what you're saying very well, but it's a new way for us to be doing it.
Chairman, can I
Yeah,
add?
it's a quicker way, I understand, but the quickness is not always the best. What would the auditor say in auditing the county records, and you have no receipts for
I'm
that
going, you
particular
got
thing.
above my
I guess
expertise.
they just look at the ordinance, the per diem, per day, and who, and how many actually used it. And that may be okay. But I was just
Help me out,
wondering,
Madam
I was
Manager.
just wondering if an auditor would question not having receipts.
I'd just like to add that we do have some controls in place in that the employee is required to turn in their agenda for the training or conference, whatever it is that they attended, that they're requesting a per diem for, so that we can see, you all know that when you go to a conference and you have an agenda, if there's a breakfast provided, that's on the agenda. If there's a lunch provided, that's on the agenda. Same thing for dinners, receptions, that sort of thing. So the employee doesn't just automatically get the full daily rate just because they went away to training. It is based on some other documentation that we gather, and I think as far as the auditing is concerned, obviously, a per diem is something that is acceptable by our auditors. I think the fact that we do have rates in the policy, I don't know if you saw that, but there are rates in the policy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that total that $59 per day. That is separated out, and that would be how we would reimburse employees based on what their agenda looked like for the training that they attended.
And those, well, if it's in here, I missed it.
Yes, it's in there. There is a chart.
Okay. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah. I didn't read far enough.
All right, back to the,
That's fine.
were you through, Mr. Bellfield?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, all right, back to the question. We had a show of hands of who wished to add a commissioner on the policy committee. I read it to be 2 people wish.
Let me just had one statement, since you.
Go ahead, sir.
And I want my commissioners to understand that I'm not talking about a member being on every policy that the administration is going through. I'm saying that we have a policy review committee where the administration comes with the board member and her chosen committee that presents it as a review that is going to come to the commissioners that we have to do approval. And that's what I'm saying, that we should have at least a representative on the committee that you done develop, your staff, and you come before us, before the committee, with your staff, and go over your policy. And that board member will be there, and then that person. See, the chairman is already normal on every committee, so if he's going to pick one person to pick people, then they will review that, and you bring it to the board. But I'm not saying that a member would be on the complete policy review while you're going over all the details. You would have pretty much put the policy together, but then it would be reviewed to make sure that, I guess, you didn't miss anything. So that's basically what I'm saying, that we would just at least have a preview with the board member, you, and a board member, if you so choose, to review the policy that will be approved by the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me make one statement, Mr. Atherton. I'm not on any of the county's internal committees. I am generally on most committees that have commissioners on them, but I'm not on anything else like this policy committee, which I seem to think you may think I am, but I'm not. I don't get involved in that, but maybe I misunderstood you.
Basically what I'm saying, if you want to be,
Right.
you can. Like I said, if you appoint another commissioner,
Right.
as the chairman,
Understand.
you can
I
participate in
can.
any
You're correct.
committee.
Yes, sir.
So that's basically
Right.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
But mainly, I'm just saying, I think we should have participation beforehand before.
Chairman, I would be glad to, any policy that needs to come before the board moving forward, I would be glad to send that out to the board a month ahead of the meeting that we would want to have it approved in, so that the board members can review that and have time to get up with me and ask any questions that they may have to get clarification. I'm really confused about another level of approval from a couple of commissioners and which policy. This policy committee is a very large group. It is made up of members of our management team as well as members throughout our organization, dependent upon what the policy is and who is involved in that. So we do involve folks at all layers of the organization in our policy committee. It's a large group. It changes depending on the policy, the expertise that we need to bring to the table. I'm not sure how I would determine which ones to involve a member of the board in. If you don't want to be in all of them, those meetings last sometimes for a couple of hours. There's multiple policies that are being reviewed at one time. I would be just glad to, when we're ready to put something before the board for approval, give you all a month ahead to do that review and reach back out with questions.
You're misunderstanding what I said.
Okay?
I did not say that board members would be on every committee, that would be on all your policy committee. I said that when there was a policy that would come before the board, that you have a standing committee with you or whoever staff have, and a commissioner would be on to simply review what you put together. And not that the commission is going to be telling you whether you can't or can't present it, but basically they just be giving you an input as a sitting member of the board. That's it. But that wouldn't be on all policy that you're doing. That would be on specific policy, like I said, that you got to bring before the board after you done already pretty much put it together to kind of review it.
All right, I'm gonna make one more attempt to close this matter, and Madam Manager, I'm gonna finish it up the way I think I need to finish it up. You asked for the floor, I'll give it to you first,
Yeah,
sir.
I just got a real problem with that, Mr. Arrington. If you have a commissioner or two, they won't present something to the board, and you have a commissioner or two sitting on a committee, and they say, well, no, we don't think this is right, we don't want to do this. Well, then, I might be all for it, but I never get a chance to hear it because it stopped in a subcommittee or whatever before it comes to the board. That's the problem I see with that right there, and I just don't, I can't go along with that.
I think Mr. Arrington's made it clear what his request is a couple of times, and I appreciate your clarity. It is a board decision whether to do that or not. I'm just going to scratch my previous show of hands. Those commissioners that are in favor of what Mr. Arrington has described, please raise your right hand. Those that are opposed to it, please raise your right hand. Mr. Belfield, you did not vote, is that, so you will be in the affirmative?
I was sitting here reading
Okay.
and missed I didn't raise my
That's
hand
okay.
because I missed what we were raising them for.
Okay, well, that motion fails on a 5-2 vote is where we are.
Mr. Chairman,
So I'm going to move on on this matter.
I know we've already moved from that matter.
Yes.
My only request is that if there is ever any question by staff as to whether a policy should come before this Board of Commissioners, that they confer with the county attorney to be sure and, before anything goes out.
And to your comments, Madam Manager, it's your determination whether you think it's important enough that you need to give us a month notice to study it. Please do that if you feel the need to do that. I'm not one to purpose to delay things because all of you know I think everything takes too long over here anyway already, but that's just a personal opinion being in private enterprise. But if it's important enough that you think it needs to come to us, and when you get something brought to you, even if it's at the agenda, you always have the right to review that agenda. I know how hard they work to get it to you on Wednesday afternoon. Sometimes it doesn't quite make it, but you got sometimes on Thursday, look at it, and you got Friday, contact the staff and ask them questions. That's why we get it as early as we do and clear it up, if you can. All hands good on that item? I'm gonna move on then to, we're gonna back up a little bit and go to, the Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2 construction agreement, item number 12, and I'll call on Patsy McGee.
I apologize, I wasn't in here. We got so many housing programs we're working on, and I got caught up in something, and I apologize.
We know you are the hardest working lady in the building. You don't have to apologize, ma'am. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. But this item for consideration is about awarding a construction contract for Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2. Nash County was awarded a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant for $425,000 for Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2. Construction improvements include additional walking trails, an event stage, a sand volleyball court, a disc golf course, a large and a small dog park, and associated improvements like site work, grading, parking, utilities, signage, and landscaping. On August 15th, we received bids from 3 contractors. The Nash County Parks Committee then met on August 21st to review the low bid and recommend changes to help reduce cost. A copy of the certified bid tab is attached, is enclosed with your agenda. And Stocks Engineering recommends that Nash County accept the bid of the lowest bidder, which is BCS Contracting, which is agreed to the recommended changes by the Park Committee, and results in a base bid of $821,696.12. Part requires that all the park improvements be constructed and that the grant be closed by October 31st of 2025. And attached to your agenda should be the recommendation for award by Stocks Engineering and 2 bid tabs, the original and the post-Park Committee recommended bid tab, which the contractor agreed to. So our recommendation is to award the construction contract for Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2 improvements, subject to review and approval of that contract by the county manager and county attorney. Are there any questions?
Any questions of this item? It does come to you with the approval of the Park Committee. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to award the construction contract.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ayrton. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Contract stands approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll then move back to Donna Wood on item number 13, which is the Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2 Grant Project Ordinance Amendment.
Okay.
Before you get up there fast, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Nash County was awarded the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant for $425,000 for Miracle Park Phase 2. On August 15th, we received bids from contractors. The Nash County Park Committee met on August 21st to review the low bid and recommend changes to help reduce cost. At this point, we recommend budgeting for the construction costs of BCS Contracting with a base bid of $821,697, including engineering costs of $65,000. The current total budget would be $886,697. That's an increase of $34,697 to be recommended for funding from the general fund balance appropriation. I'm requesting that this capital project amendment be approved.
Okay. Any questions on the dollars associated with that? I will say the Park Committee worked very hard to bring it in budget. We just couldn't quite get there, considering the engineer and fees that we had to involved in this project of this size, and so we are at $34,000 over, and the Park Committee recommended that we just get that out of fund balance so we could finish certain items in the contract, and we do have some other items that we will be working on as we move into our next year that we will be funding that are required to be done under some of the grant money, and we will have to do that prior to the grant running out, which is the stage and a few other things of that nature. But that's just where we ended up at. Any questions on that? Not entertain a motion for approval of the budget amendment?
So
Mr.
moved.
Chairman, I move that we approve the grant project budget ordinance.
Okay, I have Commissioner Outlaw, Commissioner Wilkins at the same time.
I'd be glad to second that
All right,
motion.
I'll
It'd be
take
my honor.
Commissioner Wilkins' motion, seconded by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved. Thank you, ma'am. And the next item is item number 15, which is budget amendments. And
Okay.
Ms. Wood, go right ahead.
I originally had submitted 7 budget amendments. I added an 8th budget amendment that I left with the commissioners this morning that I would also like to include in the budget amendments presented. So the first item that I have is with Farmers Market and with the Cooperative Extension. This budget amendment makes funds available from the Tourism Development Authority funding to support the Farmers Market. The funding includes $4,000 for Visit NC Farms app, $1,000 for farmers market events, and $90,450 for capital to be used to fund industrial fans for building number 1 and number 2, and heater units for building number 2. It's a total of $95,450, and no county funds are required. The next item I have is a budget amendment with the Health Department. It makes funds available from North Carolina Department of Public Health Centers for Disease Control. The purpose of the funding is to help meet critical needs in public health, including recruitment, retaining, and retraining public health staff, strengthening systems, processes, and policies, and other strategic investments. It's $340,209. No county funds are required.
You did better than I would do, Phil, Penny.
Strategic, there we go. Okay. The next item is also with the Health Department. This budget amendment makes funds available from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for implementation of the Management of Chronic Illness and Pregnancy Program. These funds will be used to purchase medical supplies to support pregnant and postpartum patients in managing their diabetes. It's $4,000. No county funds are required. The next item is with Department of Social Services. This budget amendment makes funds available from the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program to provide a fat rate supplement of $90.15 to prior recipients of this program for wastewater-related expenses. It's $16,147, and no county funds are required. The next item is also with DSS. This budget amendment makes funds available from fund balance appropriation to increase funding for child welfare capacity building consultation services and for a 3-month contract for a child welfare program manager to enhance the development of staff in compliance with the current corrective action plan and state recommendations. It's a request of $86,895. The next item is with MIS. This budget amendment makes funds available from the state and local cybersecurity grant program. These funds will be used to assist with the upgrade to Nash County's backup and recovery system to include hardware, software, and iCloud storage. The system also provides for the ability to run servers from the cloud, and it will have an air-gap system so that bad actors cannot access data. The total project is $165,000. The match of $65,000 was included in the approved budget ordinance for fiscal year 2024. The next item is the fund balance appropriation for Miracle Park Phase 2. This budget amendment makes funds available from general fund balance appropriation to support the additional costs for Miracle Park Phase 2 in excess of the current available funds for the project. It's a request for $34,697. And the final added amendment is with the Fire District Fund Balance Appropriation for Sharpsburg. This budget amendment makes funds available from Sharpsburg Fire Department Fund Balance to support a competitive state grant awarded in May of 2023. Sharpsburg must expend the full amount of funds for the project by September 28, 2023, and submit the paperwork in order to obtain the 50% reimbursement grant as awarded. It's a request of $73,256. And that's all I have.
Any questions on either of these 8 budget amendments from
Mr.
Ms.
Chairman,
Wood, Ms. Wilkins?
I have one, number
Commissioner
5.
Wilkins, excuse me.
Number 5, DSS, is that for the partnerships with Vanguard Professional Staffing and Allies for Outcomes, the press release that went out, is that what the $86,895 is for?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Other questions on budget amendments? Entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Moved by Commissioner Belfield, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Budget amendment stand approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We move to item number 16, call on the manager for board appointments.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon,
Good morning.
or good morning. The first item is for the Tourism Development Authority, the TDA. You all have some information there. We've got 4 individuals whose terms expire on April 30th, 2023. Wayne Murphy is not available for reappointment. We are awaiting to hear back from the Tourism Development Board on those other 3 appointments, and plan to bring those back to you moving forward. Is that correct? Are we not ready for those?
We are not ready for those, but I thought we had already appointed someone in Wayne Murphy's place. I need to have that checked.
Okay, we'll go back and look at that.
Do you recall? Okay,
Yeah.
you've checked that one. The other 3, I'm trying to determine where they live. I know one of them has moved, but I need to verify it, and I've asked her for a letter of resignation. And then we're looking at some attendance. We've got a little bit more time for our next meeting, but
Okay.
I'll do my best to have it ready for the October to appoint those.
Okay, and I'll follow back up with you on Mr. Murphy.
Right. Mr. Belfield, one of them is the gentleman you appointed that is a
Yeah,
school teacher.
Percy Kelly.
If you could, I've called him numerous times to see if he wants to continue to serve, but he's not able to get there. But if you don't mind helping me with that, check
I
that out. If he
will.
wants to serve, that's great.
I will.
Okay, just let me know on that one. Thank you.
Okay. The next one is for the Turning Point Workforce Development Board. The term for Marcus Whitaker expired for the Turning Point Workforce Development Board on June 30th, 2023. We would like to, the board would like to appoint Keisha Gary. She is a human resources manager at Caba Ilco.
Any questions on that? If not, I entertain a motion to make that appointment.
Move for approval?
I have a motion by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved. Go ahead.
Okay. For the Nash County Planning Board, terms expired for 2 of the planning board members on June 30th, 2023. Kevin Smith has served a maximum number of terms and is no longer eligible for reappointment, and Barbara Pulley declined to be reappointed. So we have currently 1 vacancy in, not in here, for District 7, and then we've got an application in your packet.
Right, I gave you somebody for District 7.
Okay. And
That is Randy
Stephen-
Adcock.
Randy Adcox?
Yeah, and he goes by Randy.
Okay. So the board would need to consider Mr. Adcox for one of the planning board seats.
Right. The planning board member that I had in District 7 had to resign because he wasn't able to get to the meetings because of a change in work. And it just wasn't suiting, and so he did submit a resignation letter through Mr. Tyson, and I looked someone else, and I found this Randy Adcock that was willing to serve, that lives in District 7. I think he'd be a great member. If you happen to watch a Wednesday night show about the history of Rocky Mount, he's the one that facilitates that. Very affluent guy, runs a computer business right there in Dorchester, so I'd ask the board to consider appointing him for that planning board seat. And I will put that in the form of a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. I don't know why, but I felt like that appointment filled it up, but you have a Barbara Pulley, and we haven't filled that seat.
I'm going to look into that.
Some reason think we might have.
Yeah, we will get the information updated for Randy and then see where we stand.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
And then for the Nash County Jury Commission, it's my understanding that Linda Thorne is still awaiting information from the Administrative Office of the Courts to finalize a reappointment for R.L. Bass Jr. So when we get confirmation on that, we'll bring that before the board.
Okay.
And that's all I have for appointments.
All right, that was item number 16. Item number 17 is commissioner comments, and I call any commissioner with a comment and make it at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Wilkins.
I just wanted to review briefly the 116th Annual Conference of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, which I believe most of us attended August 24th through the 26th. And just to let you know, as you know, I was elected the voting member for Nash County on that Saturday, and just wanted to let everyone know Johnny Carswell of Burke County is the president. Tara T. Davis from Warren County is the president-elect. Wallace Nelson from Perquimans County is the first vice president, and Alice Thomas, the one office we voted on, was from Hope County, is the second vice president, and Tracy Johnson, the outgoing president of Washington County, was sworn in as immediate past president, and as most of you know, they move up. So, the president serves for 1 year, so Tara T. Davis from Warren County is president-elect. So, and that's my report for that, but there were a lot of good business sessions we attended, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and all the sessions ran concurrently, so we couldn't go to every single session, but the one I really liked was crisis communications for county commissioners, so it was very worthwhile. Appreciate the county's support.
Thank you, ma'am. Other comment from commissioners? Questions? Commissioner Outlaw?
Two things, sir.
Sure.
First, for our September mid-month, we need some recommendations on internal and external. Maybe you've...
I'm going to report on that. I have that
Okay,
lined
great,
up.
Great. Second thing I wanted to just get into briefly, and I guess I would direct a question to Mr. Boone. Don't we have sewer and water out Highway 97 to the property that we own close to 95?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Recently, the city of Rocky Mount annexed property on Westmount Drive that doesn't have that capability, and I don't know what'll end up happening with that property. It's been rezoned. I've seen no movement there to do anything yet. But I think I mentioned to this board when that happened that I felt like that would open the door to future requests. So now we've got a property on Highway 97, 37 acres, that the applicant came to the planning board, I believe in 2021, and wanted to develop that property as R6. That property does have sewer, it does have water, and I believe it's the county's sewer water. I don't know how that works in terms of, county, city, et cetera. But here's the problem. And I want to tell you right up front, I have already reached out to our legislators, encouraging them to put legislation forward, local legislation that would give the county some say in matters of annexation, satellite annexation out in the county. So now you can go 3 miles out. So this property on Highway 97 that I'm referring to, I don't know what the request will be, but that petition has been filed with the city of Rocky Mount. 37 acres. We have already stated that R30 is the lowest we're going without some approval by this board. So here we are sitting in the middle of an area that certainly has nothing comparable to that in terms of size, the smallness of it, the density of it. And we have, if without some help from the North Carolina General Assembly, we have no say-so in stopping satellite annexation down Highway 97 at least, and there may be other areas. That takes us on by the reservoir, and anything can be done with that property as requested and approved by the city of Rocky Mount. I think that's wrong. I want you to be on notice that I have reached out to the legislators. I don't want you to be surprised by that. And I will continue to encourage them to put legislation forward that gives us an opportunity to input into that. I'm not saying that we would not approve what the petitioner wants to do, but we at least have a right to know what's going on so we can consider it as it fits into our land development plan. And I can tell you, there's nowhere along Highway 97 currently that R6 fits into our land development plan. So be aware of that, and don't be surprised if some legislation is coming forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. On that line, up brings me a question, Mr. Boone. If it's our utilities, which I do know it is, we gave up Bel Air some time ago, but we still have part of that. How does that work? If the city were to annex it and provide water and sewer, do they come to us and ask to use ours, or what is that process? Or could you give us that information if you're not prepared to answer that?
My expectation would be that if approved and developed, that the development would be a utility customer of the county.
Mm-hmm.
The only nuance that we would need to research are the limitations that were placed on that system by the city of Rocky Mount on Nash County as a wholesale water and sewer customer in the NC 97 corridor.
Right. So it could be a conflict possibly there. Okay.
But again, that is a restriction imposed on the county
Right.
by the city.
And I'm guessing the county would have to accept that as a customer, like the reverse would happen if it were the other way around. You can
The
answer
only
that, right?
caveat would be if that customer could not be served because of a restriction placed on the county by the city for that sewer outfall.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. All right, other commissioner comments, Mr.
No,
Beverly?
I was just going to ask the question. The acreage that you're talking about is a part of the industrial park there, 97 and I-95?
No, it's sitting at the, if you go to the intersection of Highway 97 and Halifax Road, pretty much that corridor from that intersection expanding out, I believe is a commercial area. It should be a commercial area. You've got a Dollar Tree, you've got a Dollar General, you've got a strip mall there with a food line, a Cleaners, you've got a Jack's Grocery across the road, you've got an EP Mart that's going to be built on the corner across from Jack's Grocery. So the developer, the applicant, made this request to the county. And for some reason, back in 2021, I guess because of the stance we've taken on the density of lots, sizes that we will approve, apparently decided not to come back to the county and has seen this door opened on Westmount Drive and sees it as an opportunity now to petition for this annexation, get it approved by the city, which they would follow with the rezoning, which is exactly what they did on Westmount Drive, and then you can do whatever is approved by the city of Rocky Mount within the land development plan of Nash County, with Nash County having zero zero input. And that can go as far out as 3 miles outside the current city limits of Rocky Mount down to Highway 97 corridor. I mean, if that's not a true statement, then somebody tell me it's not.
I think you're correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Outlaw.
I think I am too. Thank you, sir.
Other comments before the board, for Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment for that, or observation. Commissioner Outlaw stated that he had contacted the legislature, and don't be surprised, or there should be legislation coming soon. I would hope that our legislative representatives would, not just this board, but the public, I would like to know how it's being written, what's being done on that issue, just like it was said this past week at the church about the casino. People in the legislature doing things under the cover of darkness and not coming to the public. With that same token, I would ask that they come to the public on this. And yes, the county does need to know what's going on, and the city does as well. And so I would just ask that there be some transparency at the legislature, just like we found out about the school, the district lines being lined up with the commissioners. But I just ask that our legislatures, if they hear this, that they let us know how the bill is written, how the statute's going to be written, what changes they're planning, or what they're planning to institute in regard to the annexation.
It's really a pretty simple bill as I see it, and I thought we had agreement on the bill months back. That simply stated, all we're asking is that if you're going to annex, satellite annex, make us aware that you have had that request. Have we been notified?
No, sir.
Okay, and here's the response I got, or the response I heard from the Rocky Mount councilman on that particular request, that we be advised. Well, you were advised through the planning board agenda. Now, how many people sitting on this board pay attention to the planning board agenda for the city of Rocky Mount, or even Nash County for that matter? So that's a courtesy. If you're going to come out into the county and potentially change the landscape in our land development plan, at least give us the courtesy of letting us know that you've had that request. And the simple thing that would be in this bill is that simply there would be discussion between the city and the county on anything that is being requested for this annexation and the purpose that it would be rezoned for. The county is not going to fight, is not going to fight economic development if it's appropriate for an area. But is it appropriate for an area that's got R40, R30 homes to come out and build R6s, apartments, 3-4 stories high? I don't know. I don't think it is, without the county having some input into that. That's a protection to the people that elected us to do exactly that, look after their interest. And that's what I'm going to do.
And I understand that, but by the same token, the same consideration should be given the people of Rocky Mount and the county by the legislatures of what exactly they are going to put forth to vote on.
Oh, you're going to know exactly what it is,
And that's what I'm asking.
if they have the courage to do it.
That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
You will know.
I'm finished, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other comment from commissioners? If not, I would just add on to what Commissioner Wilkins said about the conference. I thought I did pick up quite a bit of good information. I did attend the class on media emergencies just because it seems like we've had a couple of those recently, and I want to learn as much as I could. I laid a little cheat sheet at each member's board that I was able to leave with about 10 of these, if you would just keep it in your briefcase. just gives you a few tips on how to handle things when you get called by the media in an emergency situation. The only other thing I had was my housing report that I generally do each month. Last month, the month of August, we had about $4 million worth of commercial permits pulled. We had 42 new home permits pulled throughout the county, and they were about 19 different builders. Still a pretty brisk rate, a little bit down from the 2 months before. As we all know, we are trying to build up our inspection staff downstairs. That might have had a little bit to do with it, I'm not sure. But everything still seems to be moving very well in Nash County. And I think we are moving in a direction to have better controlled growth with the work of this board through the Land Development Code, as well as how we are handling rezoning matters moving forward. So still glad to see us growing like we are, but at a more controlled rate at the request of majority of the Board of Commissioners. With that said, I will move on to manager report, item number 18, and I'll turn it over to the manager at this time.
Thank you. If you will recall, last month, we had a number of presentations to the board, and I was asked to do some work to bring back potential recommendations. I will be addressing the Sheriff's Office request for a pay increase, the creation of a crime scene investigative unit, PAM Specialty Hospital transportation request that you all heard about last month, and then I'll go into just some of my regular monthly updates, and one of those will address the opioid settlement funds and then some other updates. I will just say up front that there will be no request for the board to take any action today. I will be providing you with a lot of data that you all can view today and take with you. I've provided you handouts so that you have this information to take with you, and we will go from there. The first one is on the Sheriff's Office request for a pay increase, and I've got a couple of slides. We're going to go through salary study recommendation from last year, along with the sheriff's request for pay last year. We'll review his updated request, look at some historical data, look at some comparisons to other sheriff's office, and then you will see my recommendation. So the first slide here is about the salary study. Just wanted to review that that was done and implemented last year with the 2023 budget, and that the study looked at the financial sustainability of the county. It looked at the relevant labor market, primarily defined with the geographic region around us, and the study also looked at position classification and internal relationships, comparing responsibilities, skill level, knowledge, and equity of pay across the county. So the slide here shows the positions, rank positions in the sheriff's office, the salary study recommendation, and the sheriff's request. So last year, we met numerous times with the sheriff, and after receiving the results from the study, the sheriff came back and made a request for what you see on the far right. You can see that in many cases, it's not too far off from what the salary study recommended. And then down at the master deputy level, senior deputy level, and deputy level, the sheriff's request was for exactly what the salary study made a recommendation for. Also note that senior deputy and master deputy did not exist prior to last year. That was part of the study results, that we implement those two levels to allow our deputy positions to advance in pay depending on their years of service and training and other skills. So we built those two positions into the rank and pay scale that the sheriff requested for the 2023 budget. So those are the figures there. The next slide is just a review of the sheriff's request last month on August the 15th. So I'm showing you the current salaries that our rank and pay positions are currently at with the FY '24 budget, and then the proposed salary that the sheriff made a request for at last month's meeting. This is a slide of historical data. I think it's important for the board to see where we've come from. So this goes back to fiscal year 15, the start of the sheriff being with us, and you can see the incremental increases, primarily due to COLA increases with each budget year. And then as we move into up to date, you can see the salaries and the increases that this board has approved. I would also like to note that there are 26 deputy positions. 10 of those 26 are deputy, 11 of those 26 are senior deputy, and 5 of those 26 are master deputy. So not all of our deputy positions are at that bottom level of 45,924. 10 are at that level, and there are currently 4 vacant deputy positions. 3 of those are senior deputy, and 1 of those is master deputy. So at this point in time, from the records I was able to obtain from our finance office and human resources office, we have 4 deputy positions that are vacant, 3 are at the senior level, and 1 is at the master level. Understand that if they cannot find individuals with the credentials to be hired in at the senior or master level, they can hire them in at the deputy level, and the funds are in the budget to do so. This slide is just showing you some historical data about the assets in the sheriff's office, particularly vehicles and positions, and how those have increased over the years. There have been an increase of 39 vehicles over the last 9 years and 23 positions over the last 9 years. Here I'm providing you with total budget figures for the sheriff's office over historical data here. The first column you'll see says ORG, so that's the original appropriation that was provided during that fiscal year. And REV is the revised appropriation, so that is the ending budget at the end of the fiscal year. Whatever funds may have been reappropriated, so as we go into a new fiscal year, reappropriations for purchase orders happen and those funds roll over, as well as funds being added to the budget throughout the year for things like grants that have been awarded or capital improvement, our CIP. Whenever they're ready to spend CIP money, that money is moved into their budgets. So you've got from fiscal year 15 up to the current fiscal year. I would like to note that between 2021 and 2022, the sheriff's budget grew by over $860,000. Last year, with the implementation of the job study results, or the salary results that the sheriff requested, that was implemented last year. Last year, the budget grew by $2.2 million, and for the current fiscal year, the budget grew another $1.3 million.
So just a quick question. If I look at fiscal year 15 revised, 11 million was the budget for the sheriff's office. And am I reading it correctly that fiscal year 23 revised, it'll be 17.5 million?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's from 11 million to 17.5 million?
Yes, sir,
Okay, I just want to make sure I was reading it right.
you are.
Thank you.
This slide, just as of the other week when I was working on this, these are positions that are posted for other county sheriff's office deputy level positions. And if you go out and search for employment, these are the advertised deputy salaries for these other counties. And I've tried to list them in numerical order so you can see where Nash County falls in comparison to many of our neighboring counties. So as for a recommendation, as a reminder, the request that the sheriff made last month was to move that base deputy salary from $45,009 something to $55,000, and to increase all the other rank and pay salaries on up the scale. I've been able to show you with history that Nash County has provided significant increases in pay to our sheriff's office. We had the large increase last year with the sheriff's office request with the 2023 budget. We have 15 other comparisons from other sheriff's offices, and it's my recommendation at this time that we not make a change to the pay in the sheriff's office. I believe, from the information I've been able to provide today, that our salaries are competitive and offer career growth with the implementation of senior and master deputy. I would not ask for any action on this item today. Are there any questions? Okay.
I heard you this way first. Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, I just wanted a clarification. The sheriff's office salary historical data from 2023 to 2024, that salary, 2024, is only because of the 5% cost of living raise that was given this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So nothing else? Okay.
Through Ms. Wilkins.
And I think it's worth
I think
mentioning.
so.
And I think it's worth mentioning that the intent of this board is to give at least a 5% increase across the board next year.
That has been a stated goal and what we'll be working towards.
Thank you.
You have a question, Mr. Aaron? Mr. Outlaw. Of course, I can't sit here and intake all of this quick.
Sure.
How would be the best way to manage any questions moving forward? Should we do it at a later meeting, or do you want us to contact you individually? May be the best way to do it,
I'd be happy for you to contact me.
individually.
Sure.
Okay. We all understand that once you get a chance to decipher these numbers, talk to the manager individually about any questions you may have. There's a lot of information here, and I certainly can't quite take it in. I like the way you structured it. It gives a great overview of that.
I think it's important for the board to understand what our history has been, the progress that we have made, to be able to make any kind of decision moving forward.
One thing jumps out at me when I look at item page 4, Sheriff Office Salary Historical Data. The change between 22 and 23. I don't recall, and again, all of us know I don't recall everything quite as well as I did at one time, but there's some significant increases there that I don't remember us doing. How do we jump? I'll just arbitrarily take a sergeant from 47,000 to 65,000 in 1 year in salary. Did the board, I would have thought, had to give approval to that, or was it done when we approved the pay study? Tell me how that happened.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to go back a couple of more slides.
Okay.
This is the slide that shows the pay study recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, it might be helpful for us to be able to put fiscal year 22 numbers up against what the study's recommendation was.
Right.
And then again, the sheriff met with myself and staff that were working on the budget numerous times and came to us with these figures that, as you can see, I mean, they're all significant figures, but the differences are up in the upper level ranks for the majority. And across the county, we accepted the results of the pay study.
Okay.
We were going to accept the results of the pay study for the sheriff's office, but we did just a little bit more and met his request in 2023. And that's the jump between those fiscal year 22 numbers and fiscal year 23 numbers that you're seeing on that other chart.
Would you put that chart back up there?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like for the board to really study that chart between 22 and 23, because I didn't have any idea we did those kind of increases at that point in time. I guess it happened in the pay study, and I don't remember it, I guess, I don't know. But they're pretty significant.
They are, and you might even be surprised if you saw that in across all of our areas. There's some other areas that we had some very significant increases in.
So what I'm telling myself is when we do a pay study, I better study the pay study a little bit more than I may have this time. That's a comment to myself, you don't need to address it. Other comments, questions on
I
this?
have one question, Stacy. In looking at this advertised positions, Wayne County kind of jumps out to me that they got a range from 35 to 55. Do you know if they don't break their deputies down in senior, master deputy? There's got to be.
So this was the range that was posted, advertised publicly for a deputy position. So I don't know, I didn't contact them, but I would imagine that maybe they don't have those levels, but they allow themselves that range depending on the individual's years of experience, training, that sort of thing.
Mr. Chairman.
I'd be glad to contact them and ask them if they have those levels.
Be nice to know.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson?
The $45,925, is that starting salary for any deputy, even someone coming on board without experience?
It is. That is our base salary for a deputy.
Other comments? We'll move on. Please feel free to get in touch with staff if you have other questions. And if the board so chooses, we can discuss it as a board at a later date, once we've had time to study it more.
That's what I was going to request, Mr. Chairman, that it's fine to contact the county manager, but I think as a board, we need to leave space or room to consider this if the majority of us feel it should be considered.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Turn it back over to you.
Okay?
Yeah, I guess it would be a little helpful to show the starting salary and what's your maximum in that position.
There is, the sheriff requested last year with the fiscal year '23 budget that he turn to a rank and pay system to where if you are at that rank, that is your pay.
Okay.
There is no range in the sheriff's office.
All right.
Okay? All right, the next subject here is the crime scene evidence unit. We will review the request, some historical salary data, historical and salary data, sorry, evidence calls for service, and the recommendation. So just to review the request from last month, it was to move the civilian supervisor, which I just will remind the board, we did not have a civilian supervisor position in evidence prior to the current fiscal year. And in the current fiscal year, we provided that title and we provided an increase, and you'll see that pay in another couple of slides. But he would like to raise that salary to $72,000, and he would like to increase the crime scene investigator's salary to $55,000. So currently, if you'll recall, he is using 2 sergeant positions to work evidence along with his civilian supervisor. He wants to move those sergeants back into patrol and hire 2 civilian evidence technicians. And I believe he indicated a number of times that they've already identified who those individuals are. They wish to create a highly trained and science-based evidence division and employ 2 civilians who have already been identified. Just said that, sorry about that. So here's some historical data. Just going back to February of 2017 is when Nash County hired a part-time evidence tech. So prior to that, we didn't have evidence technicians, and we hired our first part-time evidence tech in February of 2017. That position stayed part-time until July of 2019, when we turned it into a full-time position with an annual salary of $37,372. You can see the incremental increases there with a performance bump in March of '22, raising that salary to $45,797. Another cost of living adjustment. And then this budget year, we turned that civilian evidence full-time position into a supervisor to recognize the supervisory responsibilities that that person would have over 2 civilian evidence techs that the sheriff's office is requesting. And we raised that salary almost 18% with another 5% COLA to $58,330. Currently, the salary study that we had done just a year ago recommended our civilian evidence technicians at a grade of 110, which is $41,820. Just wanted to give you a little bit of historical data on our calls for service when it comes to the evidence technician being called out into the field. And then if you'll recall, I said that he has been using 2 sergeants. So those would be the evidence tech sworn positions. We are able to look into our computer-aided dispatch system, our CAD system, for calls and see those individuals being dispatched on calls. So I just want to give you a feel for the type of activity that Nash County has when it comes to calls for service to have these evidence techs go out into the field to do work. And then down below, I've just got them broke down some of the more serious types of call for services, including shootings and stabbings, psychiatric calls or suicide, cardiac arrest, overdose, burglary, and robbery. So the recommendation, just showing that we've had some significant increases for that evidence technician over the years, including the current year, changing that position to a supervisor and increasing the salary. The salary study that was performed, we implemented that back in 2023 last year, or I'm sorry, fiscal year 23 last year. Our calls for service, you saw that information. They have not significantly increased over time. Nash County, like every other county in the state, has access to specialized investigatory services through the State Bureau of Investigation, the SBI. And considering these factors, I would not make a recommendation to increase these salaries any further than we already have. Are there any questions?
Any questions from commissioners? The supervisor, you show here July of 2023, that salary increased 18% to $58,330 on page 8.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that person has been paid now?
It is not. Currently, that person is being paid the 5% COLA over the July 22 amount. We have tried to get the paperwork necessary to increase to what has been approved in the budget, and we have not yet received that paperwork
What does that mean?
from the sheriff's office.
Oh, okay.
So they're making about 49 and some change, they could be making 58. That don't sound just right. You just are lacking paperwork to give somebody a raise?
The sheriff wanted to make a request to the board to increase that salary to $72,000. The sheriff is not happy with $58,330, and he is holding off on sending the paperwork to learn if this board will award a salary of $72,000.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on the creation of crime scene investigation unit? We'll move on to Pam Help Transportation request then.
Okay. So last month you heard a presentation from staff at our PAM Specialty Hospital located in Rocky Mount. We'll review that request and take a look at other specialty hospitals in the state and have a recommendation. So if you'll recall, their request was for Nash County to consider not referring to return transports from UNC Health Nash to PAM as a convalescent transport. They want us to consider those return transports just as critical as the arriving transports. And then I just provided a little bit of information about how many transports our Nash EMS has provided to PAM since June of '22, and we have done a total of 71 transports for them. And if you'll recall from the presentation, I believe she stated they do about 100 transports a year. And as you can see from that number, 71, Nash County EMS has been providing the majority of their transports. So with the help of staff, we've reached out to the other specialty hospitals in the state. There is Select Specialty in Durham. Durham EMS said that they've transported for them for a few 911 calls, but they do not provide their inter-facility transports. More than likely, they have their own contract with either JanCare, North State, or MedEx that are operating in the Durham area. With Kindred Hospital in Greensboro, there is a Piedmont Triad Ambulance and Rescue service that provides, it's an independent service that provides transports for a 3-county area, and they have a contract with them to provide their services. And then there's Highsmith Rainey Specialty Hospital in Fayetteville, and they handle all of their inter-facility transports in-house. So the recommendation at this time is, this is PAM's responsibility to provide transportation to their clients. As a registered hospital in North Carolina and a Medicare provider, transports and the care of their patients on transport is 100% their responsibility. I've shown that other specialty hospitals in the state have been contracting directly with other transport companies to take care of their needs. A 911 true emergency call is what our Nash County EMS's priority is. And it's not recommended to change that at this time. So I would just recommend that I be able to send some communication to PAM Hospital and let them know that Nash County's priority are true emergency 911 calls, and encourage them to look into a contract like other specialty hospitals do to take care of their transportation needs. Any questions?
Well, I do think it's important, first of all, any questions from the commissioner?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I just think this recommendation is on target. I'm just perplexed that Nash County or any county would provide medical services to a private entity to transport patients. I would think that would be their responsibility, other than the 911 emergency call. So I'm in agreement with this, so.
Other comments?
Got a question.
Sure.
Are the reimbursement rates the same for emergency transports, non-PAM transports versus what the reimbursement is for these?
I believe they are, but I will double check on that and get back with you.
They are a different rate,
Are they a different rate?
yes. I can't tell you the rates, but they are a different rate.
I'll find out for you.
You can actually get the rates in between the two of them. Other comments or questions? I think this is something that needs to be addressed real soon,
Yes.
because I think it's sitting out there waiting for our answer. You know, I did call the medical doctor that's over that hospital, happened to be somebody I know, I had a good frank discussion with him. And it's just time for us to advise them where we stand. And I don't think it needs to include us doing the transports with one of our contract transporters that has the level to be able to do that necessarily. I mean, if they're available to do it, that's fine, but I don't think they need to be dependent on Nash County to have enough of that kind of transports available. They need to do what I see you got these other hospitals doing, is have that contract themselves.
Exactly.
Or either do it themselves, one of the two. But the way it's sitting right this minute, I can see blame coming back to the county in a situation that doesn't turn out good, when it really should be cleared up so it doesn't come back to the county.
Correct.
So this particular one, I'd like to give the manager and this department the authority to go ahead and let the hospital know where we stand if the board is ready to do that, and the attorney will allow us to do that. I just don't like it sitting there another week or two in limbo like it is. Is there any objection to us taking what the recommendation is and going on and notifying the hospital?
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion if that's required.
I'm going to ask the attorney, I'd probably rather not do it with a motion, but I'll lead to his expertise and tell me how to handle it.
I think you can just accept her recommendation.
Yeah, okay. That's what I'd like to do, I think.
And direct me to communicate with the hospital.
Yes, and direct you to communicate with the hospital.
Will do.
Okay. Any commissioner opposed to that? Thank you.
Okay. All right. This slide here is about our opioid settlement funds. So the memorandum of agreement for those funds has a requirement that the county have an annual meeting inviting all of the municipalities. We actually have our first annual reporting date upon us, and in working with staff through NCACC on opioid settlement funds, I'm just continuing to educate myself and ask questions, and that is something that we do need to make happen very quickly before the annual reporting period expires. And so they have offered to come to Nash County, and they have done this with a couple of other counties so that the county can meet this annual meeting requirement. And they've offered to come and do a presentation of a review of the memorandum of agreement, and we can invite our municipalities. I've spoke with the chairman and let him know that I would also like to invite the interested providers. You all know that we formed the CARE Coalition in Nash County a number of years ago, and that group has a lot of key players on it. So I think it would be important to invite those members to the meeting. But the staff from NCACC have offered that they could either come during the day for a daytime meeting on Monday, September the 25th, or come for an evening meeting on Tuesday, September the 26th. And I did talk with the chairman about that as well. We thought that possibly an evening meeting might be more available to our citizens to attend that meeting. And so if you don't mind looking at your calendars and seeing if a Tuesday, September the 26th evening meeting would work for you.
After you clear that date up, I do have a couple of questions.
Now be kind.
I
Would
will,
it start at 6?
26th?
No, I said, would it start at 6? What time?
I think 6 o'clock would be a good time, yes. Does anybody have any conflicts? So if not, the plan will be at our second meeting in September, our September 18th meeting. We will recess that meeting to the 26th at 6 PM and have our opioid settlement meeting.
Would that be here?
Yes, sir. And I will inform those staff members today.
when you refer to they will come into a meeting, who is they? Is it a state organization or is it our association?
So the association, Kevin Leonard put into place SMS services.
Right, so that's what you're speaking.
That is.
Okay, that's what I thought, I want to make sure.
The SMS staff that are specifically in place to assist counties with opioid settlement funding. There's at least 4 of them that I was able to meet at the conference, and I would imagine a couple of them will come to join us.
Second question, is all of this money funneled through the counties, or does any of it go directly to a large municipality? Like, does Rocky Mount get their own money, or their money comes through the county?
I believe Rocky Mount does get funding.
They get their own money.
I thought that was the case, so we're talking about every municipality with the exception of Rocky Mount. As far as attending this meeting, that's a question, not a statement.
We'll look into it.
Okay.
I don't want to say that we will be
Okay.
excluding them unless I know that that's
Right, I'm
appropriate.
just wondering,
Yeah.
now, I thought they got their own funds, I was just
I do
wondering
believe
how
that they
worked.
have their own funding.
Okay.
But I will look into that, and, but for municipalities in the county that did not receive direct allocations, will be invited.
And you think that's everyone potentially with the exception of Rocky Mount?
Probably so.
Okay, we'll just clear that up. And if you'd send the board an email so they can kind of keep in touch with their towns, municipalities in their given districts, make sure they're aware of it.
Sure.
The list of people that I've had call me, I've been passing to you, so you'll be notifying all of those. I don't need to worry about that or any other commissioner.
No, I will notify them, the ones that you've sent to me. If board members have somebody that you just want to make sure that I don't leave out, please feel free to send me a contact. Dave Peterson did go ahead and update the CARE Coalition.
Right.
So they are expecting an invitation. They know that this is coming. But anybody that you think that we need to make sure that we include, feel free to forward it on, and I'll make sure that we do that.
And Dan and Sue, 2 of them that have contacted me are churches. Bailey Church of God has got a group that works on that. And then the Middlesex Church has a new name. What's the name of that church?
Midpoint.
Midpoint. They have a group, and they're on the list to be notified because they're starting a program for that as well. So those 2 I'll have on the list.
Okay.
And then, well, we could talk, there are a few more, but I'll review your list again, make sure I give you everybody that I've heard from.
Okay. All right. I'll move on. For the second meeting in November.
Before you leave that
not
subject,
November.
do you have any update? I know you're looking to put a position in place. Any update on where that stands, or you just been swamped? I fully understand that too.
Well,
Trying not to put you on the spot.
yes, but I am working on the job description to make sure that I incorporate into that assistant county manager job description the expectations of being able, and the expertise needed to be able to administer these opioid funds for the county.
Okay,
As soon as I get that where it needs to be, we will get that position posted.
gotcha. Thank you.
Okay? Second meeting in September is September the 18th. Pamela Gould with Strategic Twin County Education Partnership, STEP. She is planning to come and present to the board, as well as Ms. Dorothy Hinton, the Executive Director with Communities and Schools. And then I did not, and I apologize, I probably should have said up front, I did not give you all an update on EMS last month. That was another presentation that was provided to the board. We discovered that not all of the information that you received was accurate. So Mr. Cameron will be coming back before the board at the September 18th meeting to correct that information for you and address where we are today with that organization. So. And then planning and inspections, just an update that the position for Code Enforcement Officer 1 has been accepted by Milton Blaine Silver, and he started with the county on September the 1st. And staff are still working towards the implementation of the new software system, and we are still on target to go live in January. And just another reminder, the revaluation, you all will have a presentation in the September 18th meeting where a schedule of values will be presented to you.
We're behind Edgecombe. They got theirs last night.
They did.
Kidding with you.
And then just wanted to review with the board. Janice sent out some information about our meeting date with the school board. I don't believe she's heard back from all of you, so I just want to confirm that October the 9th at 6 p.m. Works for everyone on the board so that we can get back with the school board.
Do we have a location for that yet?
We do not. Location is to be determined, so we'll send out information. And
Thank you.
I don't know if I said that date right. Did I say that date right? October
You did.
9th? October 9th at 6 p.m. If there are no conflicts, we will ask Janice to follow back up with school board. And that is the end of my manager's report.
Any questions on the manager report from the manager?
Mr. Chairman, I just want one clarification. Mr. Cameron, when he comes, was there an ask? Were they?
No, they were presenting information, and in that presentation, they shared that currently they only had 3 vacant positions. And at that point, the chairman questioned whether they could overstaff, overhire. And that's not something that we can do without board approval. And as we started looking into that some more for me to be able to provide an update to the board, we determined that that information was not completely accurate, that we were down to 3 vacancies. We're not. We've got more vacancies than that. So he would like to come and correct that information, and I don't know if there's other corrections that he needs to make, but he'll do that. I don't think that we need to consider approving additional positions to overstaff until we do get staffed up. But he will come and correct that information for the board and on the 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the manager report?
Just
Mr. Outlaw?
one question. All of this information that you just presented, I assume is public record.
Sure.
So when I get quizzed on any of these subjects, then this information can be made available to those people?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Other comments? I would just like to say to the manager, we had a lot come up at the last meeting, and a little surprised we didn't have anyone in public comment today, but we will, I think, continue to have public comment because of the world we live in today, which is quite all right, but the way we did it as a board to direct the manager to study the items that did come back, like you've done here, I think is the perfect way of handling it, and I hope the rest of the board agrees with me. It gives time to get facts and not be making decisions without facts, so I appreciate all the work somebody has done, or several people have probably done to put this together, but I hope moving forward, you're okay for us to continue taking public comments, or not necessarily public, but actually the sheriff did present under public comment. No, he had an agenda item on that last time, but to be able to give you time to put it together and then bring it back to the board, so we will be dealing with the facts we need to deal with instead of just how people may think at a given point in time. So I thank all you and your staff for the work you had to put into this. I know it had to be quite a bit.
Thank you. Yes, I do also want to thank staff members who got numerous requests from me for information. So it was a team effort, but I think it was well worth the time to be able to compile the information and have that before you.
Sure. All right, if there's nothing else, we do, you have something?
Like I said, he made that as an agenda item.
He did.
Yeah.
Correct.
So any other department that might have a recommendation, they can also make an agenda item and come before the board.
They can, but I do ask they do it in a timely manner and not do it after the agenda goes out, which has happened several times.
That it should be an agenda item. That it
It's
shouldn't be
fine to do it that way.
any department that come.
Under public comment.
They shouldn't be part of public, it should come as an agenda item.
Couldn't agree with you more, sir.
All right.
Yep, fine. With that said, we do have a closed session item, which is for economic development and an attorney, get it in front of attorney-client privilege and economic development, and so I would ask for a motion to go into closed session at this time after a 15-minute pause.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries, and we will reconvene after closed session in the meeting hall. Thank y'all. Call the regular meeting for the Nash County Board of Commissioners back to order at this time. During closed session, we got an update on numerous economic development projects. Only information that was received during that time, no action to be taken in open session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to close the meeting for the Nash County Board of Commissioners for September 6, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Leggett, second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on
Mr.
that
Chairman?
motion? Yes, sir.
Aren't we recessing to the 18th?
18th is a regular scheduled meeting, our second meeting, so we will adjourn, and it's on the schedule for that. At the 18th, we will be recessing to another date.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion to adjourn, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Stand adjourned. Thank y'all.